Hello. Thank you, Kamiko. We are so excited to be here and share some of the resources that we have through Texas History Day and National, which is an affiliate of the National History Day program. Pretty much every state has a program, including U.S. territories and international schools. So it's a pretty extensive program. So that's kind of what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna give you a few little tips on research, and you can use what we're giving you today, the resource we're giving you, and the information we're giving you today. You can use it in your classroom. You don't necessarily need to have your students compete in the program if you don't want to. If you feel like it's too much the first year or something like that, you can still use the resources in your classroom, and it's still very beneficial to you in that way. So we'll go ahead and get started. So let me make sure that yeah, we're going to start off with a poll. So Kamiko is our Vanna White of polls. And the first poll question, what types of research projects have you assigned in the past in your classroom? So just go ahead and we'll give you just a few seconds since it's a pretty quick poll. It looks like really that it's kind of a mix of all the above. Um, and then with historical paper, oral presentations, a model exhibit. So, okay, that sounds kind of like what we were expecting. We expected some the teachers to kind of to have a mix of that, if not kind of spread it all around a little bit to share different things. So I am going to X out of that. There we go. Okay. Whoops, it came back on me. Okay, so National History Day, and these are pictures from our most recent national contest for Texas. Took a contingent of 73 students to a national contest at the University of Maryland in near Washington D.C. And so these are some of the photographs from our students there. But it is a really exciting program that really concentrates on analysis, historical research, and critical thinking. And it allows students to be creative in their interpretation of what they find, the information they find from their sources. Um, so, okay. One of the things that National History Day or Texas History Day is it's project-based learning, and I know that that's kind of a buzzword or buzz term right now in education. And so, because the students are really, it's really the students that are kind of in control of this, but then they're able to put everything what they learn into a sort of project, and they get their hands um, on the history as well. So it's personalized to them, so they can choose various categories, various ways of expressing themselves and sharing what they've learned, and it's authentic because it's the students. The students are the experts. That's what we say whenever when we're talking to judges for the program. We were like, you don't need to know whenever you're judging, you don't need to know the content because the students are the experts, and you can really see that when they start sharing their project and the extent of their research. So on the right there is a exhibit that was showcased in the National Museum of American History at the Smithsonian from Texas. And so one student from Texas or one project from Texas was chosen to represent Texas at the Smithsonian. So one of the things that National History Day does and Texas History Day does is it provides kind of a framework for students and for teachers to help learn various skills. And it takes the historical information, the sources, and it helps the students organize that. And then they're able to use different skills and techniques in order to present that information. So it definitely helps with their research and reading skills, of course. just by the nature of the research. Definitely with critical thinking, because then they have to analyze. They need to analyze the sources between the primary and secondary sources, and kind of use their analysis side of their brain in order to um, to pull out what information will work for their project. Definitely problem solving skills, and I think that comes in a couple of different ways, because some of the students are in a group, so of course that means that they have to solve problems within the group sometimes, because as you all know, not all students get along 100% of the time. So they definitely have to problem solve within, but then they also have to problem solve if they notice that there's a hole in their research, or if they can't find a particular source, or if they're having trouble with something, they have to figure out how to take care of that problem. And of course, the teacher is there to help guide them, and we're also here, so they can reach out to us. They can reach out to teachers. They can reach out to experts. So it definitely helps. And I would say the self-esteem and the confidence is one of the major aspects we can see firsthand, because the students, we can see their project at the beginning of the year, and then as it develops at each stage of the contest or throughout the year, when they share that presentation or they share that the historical research they've done, it is, you can see that they've grown. When they, at the beginning of the year, they're unsure, and by the end of the year, they're speaking with such confidence. And we've had teachers say that after their student went through the program one year and then made it state that this student decided that he wanted to go ahead and go on to college, and he wasn't thinking that beforehand. But I guess he realized what he could do and what he was capable of. So that's always a nice thing to see. Okay, so for this is the process for National History Day, and I'm going to turn it over to Danny because he's going to tell you about a topic, selecting a topic.
Okay, so the next group of slides are going to go through the process that a student would go through to complete a National History Day project. And of course, the first step is to select a topic. Next slide. Okay, National History Day uses a theme approach. Each year, there is a national theme that all the students throughout the country use that same theme. The themes are always intended to be very broad, and they can apply to state history. So if you're a 7th grade teacher doing Texas history and you want your students to do only Texas history, they can stick with their state history. It could be American history, world history, local history, any type of history. It's going to fit that broad theme. So the theme helps them focus their research and helps them with their analysis and the proper context and that sort of thing. So each year there's a theme narrative that's contained in the theme booklet, and you'll have access to both of those in the information that's in the Google Classroom. Okay, next slide. So this year's theme is turning points in history. So you see automatically how broad that is. So you would want to help the students understand that theme, looking at a turning point as being the point at which a significant change occurs, or in other words, a decisive moment. So then this is how you can help students select topics. So for example, if a student was interested in a particular war, they wouldn't want to try to cover the whole war in their project. They would want to find where the turning point was in the war. It might have been a particular battle, or it might be the impact of the war on a particular group of people, something along those lines. Another example, if students are interested in a civil rights topic, they would want to look for a key moment in the struggle that a specific group had in their struggle for gaining the rights that they were entitled to. So there's lots of ways to look at this theme. Another example is if there's an innovation or a scientific discovery, you would want to look at how that influenced the course of events that follow. So those are the kind of turning points you want students to look for. We always encourage students to find some unique or lesser known topics that they can research, rather than doing the tried and true ones that automatically come to mind when they hear the theme, turning points in history. Okay, next slide. Also notice the words in history on the topics, and we recommend that their main topic be at least 20 years old. There needs to be enough time has passed to have some analysis and see the impact of that topic in history. If it's a more recent event, say for example the COVID crisis, the COVID pandemic, there's not been enough time to see the impact of that in history. But if they were interested in that sort of topic, they could look back at the Spanish flu in the early 1900s and possibly do a comparison to the COVID pandemic. But their main focus should be that older pandemic, the Spanish flu, and the influence that it had and the impact that it had over a number of years. So we generally use at least 20 years old. Okay, next slide. Okay, students need to weave the theme throughout the project, not just mention it once, but weave it throughout. So we want to look at how things were before the turning point, what happened during the turning point, and then how it changed. So we're looking at those short-term and long-term impacts in history going beyond their basic topic. Okay, next slide. So here's just some tips that you can use with the students. It's always best if the student picks a topic that they're interested in. If they find it boring from the very start and they have to work on it for several months, they're not going to do their best quality work. So first of all, finding something that they're interested in. Secondly, find a topic that the research materials are going to be available. They need to use both primary and secondary sources. So picking a topic where they can find those sources available, and they may vary from place to place. And so for example, if someone picked a topic in early European history, for example, they may find that a lot of their materials are written in another language that they can't read, and therefore especially those primary sources might not be as readily available. So looking for topics where the research materials are going to be available is important. And then the third thing as a tip is looking for a topic that's the right size. It's not too narrow that they don't have that historical importance, or it's not too broad that it's too complex to help to handle in the project that they're doing. So looking at that, and I think our next slide has a little diagram to help students narrow their topic. So you start with a theme and then break it down to an area that they're interested in or what the teacher requirement is. So it might be a broad topic, might be something like civil rights or World War II or something very broad, and then they need to look for that narrowed down topic that gets them to a specific topic that is the right size for their research project. Okay, next slide. All right, next poll. Poll question number 2. On this poll, it asks, what challenges do your students face in researching historical topics? And that's going to be the next part of our presentation that Lisa is going to present. Okay, getting close. Need a few more responses, please.
All right. Yeah, I think that definitely, especially in a classroom, you would find that students would it would be a mix of all these problems, and we definitely understand that. So I am going to talk to you all about some of these issues and how we can how you, maybe some strategies or some resources to help you with that. Just on a side note, we will be having the next webinar will be on researching and that we'll be doing with Humanities Texas, and that's in October. So definitely, I believe it's October 16th. So if you want it to go more in depth on research and help and guide your students in teaching with primary sources, that would be a great one for you to sign up for. So whenever we're talking about primary sources and secondary sources, sometimes students get a little bit confused. Sometimes students think that a primary source is their most important source or the source they use the most. Of course, logically, I mean, if you literally, that you would think that's what it means. So we can understand why students would think that. But a primary source, of course, is something that someone witnessed the event, or the author, the maker of that source, witnessed the event, or it was done at the time of the event. Secondary sources are sources, of course, that have analyzed primary sources and come up with either a biography, or there's newspaper articles that look back on an event, websites, that sort of thing. So those are the secondary sources, but you can definitely use secondary sources. Students can use those in order to look for primary sources. They just need to go look in the bibliography in the back and see what primary sources were used by the person, the author, or whoever developed that. So whenever did I go too far? No. Okay.
No.
Whenever we're talking about historical argument, that's the new term that History Day has for thesis, for writing a thesis. It seems the students tend to understand that a little bit more because thesis is kind of this abstract word, but writing a historical argument, it seems to kind of click a little bit more. But basically, a thesis statement really brings the whole project together, and it kind of gives you an idea of what is going on with their project, what their project is going to be about. And it should be written after the preliminary research. So, and then of course, as they keep going, revised. Some students will try to find sources that they've already come to a conclusion. They want to find sources that support that. But students really need to be flexible and understand, let the research guide them. And I am not a great thesis writer. I've had to work on it. It's something that that people have to really work on sometimes, because it has to be impactful, but it's only really a few sentences long. But it really has to be impactful, and draw the attention. And so a well-written statement will address the topic. It'll include the theme, and it explains the impact. Why, so what? Like, why is it important? It's the so what factor. And so whenever we're talking about the historical argument is basically the topic plus the theme plus the impact. Primary sources that we were talking about earlier, those are things like interviews. Now, interviews, really the transcript, they can interview people that witnessed the event, but if they interview an expert, that is not a primary source, because that unless that expert witnessed the event, then they are not a primary source. Some students think that if they interview an expert because they're interviewing a real person, that it's primary, but it just really depends upon the context of that. And then if they find an oral interview in archives, they're more than welcome to use that, and that is considered a primary source. But they just need to make sure it's an unedited version, or they have the transcript. Journals are another great one, and letters. Sometimes if you can find letters or collections in the archives from a certain person or family, then those are treasure trove. All sorts of documents, census, a lot of the information on ancestry, that sort of thing. Those are primary source documents. Magazine and newspaper articles written at the time of the event. If it's something looking back on like the 20-year anniversary of an event, that is not a primary source, and they really need to go back and check out the newspaper and magazine articles from that event.
I'm in a webinar. What's up?
One of the things that we see too is that students will find a picture that they really want to use, a historic photograph, and they really want to use it, but they saw it on Wikipedia or the website. They really need to trace it back to the original source, because photos can be edited, just like anything else. Photos can be edited, so they really need to find where that picture came from. So on Wikipedia, they can go down to there's a bibliography portion in Wikipedia, and they can go down and take a look at that. Or underneath the photo, typically, is where the authors or the creators of that article got that photo. So that's they really need to trace it back, basically. One other good place for primary sources are museums. They have artifacts and collections, and so artifacts are definitely a primary source as well. And they do ask for in an annotated bibliography in National History Day, Texas History Day. And entry basically needs to follow either the Chicago Manual style or the MLA style. And the annotations can be no longer than 3 sentences, and it basically needs to say why this source was important. So if it's a photo, we'd rather the students not say something like, this is a photo that helped me or showed me. And because of course we can see that from the source, we know it's a photo, but why is it important? What did you gain from it? And it kind of makes students really think about their sources and why they were important to their project. And we ask that they separate the primary and the secondary sources into separate sections, just so it's clear that then they can take a look and see how many primary sources they have and secondary sources. And one of the ways that will help in October is we'll kind of give you some tricks and tips on how to expand research and expand the sources. All right, so Danny's going to talk about creating the project.
Okay, so once the students have selected a topic, narrowed it down, and completed their research, they pull it all together by creating their project. And so we're going to look at the different kinds of projects that the students can do with the National History Day program. So here's a list, and we'll talk a little bit about each one. So so you see the list of 5 different categories that students can choose for their project. They can do a historical paper, so that's where your good writers want to write a paper. An exhibit like the picture you see over on the right is a three-dimensional, like you would see in a museum. Documentary, like you might see on the History Channel. A performance that's performed live. And then the fifth choice is a website. All of these can be completed by individual students working on their own, and for the four categories, except for papers are individual only. The other four categories, exhibit, documentary, performance, and website, can also be done by small groups of students working collaboratively. So groups are considered to be 2 to 5 students working together. Okay, and we're going to talk a bit about each of these categories here.
Just really quick, one thing, if any elementary teachers are on here, we do have a new category for elementary students. It's a poster category for 4th and 5th grade. And there's some information on that specific, the requirements and stuff for that. But the general information that we're presenting now will cover that category, but it's in the Google Classroom for those resources are for you there.
Okay, great addition there, Lisa. Keep in mind, though, as far as the contest is concerned, which we'll talk about later, the elementary division is a Texas only, so they can compete at the regional and state level, but not advance to the national level. Okay, so each of the categories has specific rules, and the rule book you can find in the Google Classroom there, and the rules kind of level the playing field, so all of the students are kind of working under the same parameters. So the contest is not about rules, but we have to have rules, obviously, to keep the level playing field and so forth. So the rules might relate to word count, so such in a historical paper, the size of an exhibit, the length of the documentary or performance, those kind of things. So we really encourage students, teachers, and parents to read the rules. So, because sometimes the parents might need to know so they can guide their students in creating their projects. So the rule book is very important there. Okay, next slide. So obviously I'm not going over all the rules, but I'll give you some of the basics so you know what you're looking at with each category. So historical papers have a word limit of 1,500 to 2,500 words. No more than 2,500. Their paper includes footnotes and endnotes, but those aren't included in the word count. The word count is just for the paper itself. Okay. The papers must have a process paper, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So that's kind of like a separate part of it. It's, again, not in the 2,500 word count. But if they put some explanations in their footnotes or their picture captions or any appendices, that is part of the word count. So they have to kind of be careful of what they're including in their footnotes and picture captions. Okay. Second category, exhibits. They have a size limit, and you'll see this in the rule book. The size limit's no more than 40 inches wide, no more than 30 inches deep, and no more than 6 feet tall. So they have those size limits. So you think about it being on a tabletop. Tables are typically about 30 inches wide. And so the exhibit needs to fit on a tabletop, although they can design it to stand on the floor, either way, as long as it fits within those size limits. The other thing that I'll mention is you typically see the trifold, the 3-section exhibit like you see in the picture there, but that doesn't mean that it has to be. Students can get creative and find different ways that they can design their exhibit. Exhibits do have a word count, no more than 500 student-composed words. So if they put a document or a quote on their exhibit, that doesn't count in that word count. It's their analysis that they're putting in that 500 words. So students have to be pretty concise in getting down to the 500 words that are important to present their analysis on their exhibit. Any visuals that they have on their exhibit must be credited, but the words in the credit do not count against them in their word count. Okay, next slide. Documentaries, where students use video editing, and which could be a combination of still pictures, video clips, and the narration that they've recorded, and it's limited to 10 minutes. So it's like what you would see on the History Channel, but much shorter, a 10-minute documentary. And then the next category is a performance. So in a performance, students have done their research, they write their own script, and their performance is performed live at the contest. And the time limit on that is 10 minutes. So they can design their own set, come up with costumes and so forth, like you see in the pictures, students presenting the Wright brothers in their performance. And then the last category is websites. Websites also have a word count limit of 1,200 words, and they also have a media clip time limit of 3 minutes. Back to the idea of a level playing field, there's all kinds of software out there for students to develop websites, and and some of them are very expensive, so that would give an unfair advantage to some schools over another. So what National History Day does is they provide a platform, NHD Web Central. It's provided by National History Day, and all students are required to use that platform to create their website. So it takes away the idea of an expense. So any student that has internet access, either at school or at home, can create a website. So it's not limited to those that have the fancy technology. As long as they have internet, they can create their website. Okay, so no matter what category the students might pick, they're going to consider this so what factor. So we want the students to get beyond just telling the story of what happened in a particular event, whatever their turning point in history is. So we want them to look at things like cause and effect, change over time, and really get into the impact of a topic in history and come up with their own analysis, draw their own conclusions, to look at both short range impact, what happened immediately after that event, and long range, what happened over the period of time. So we call that the so what factor, so that students can kind of really consider that part of their analysis. Okay. And I mentioned earlier, I think the process paper, all entries have a process paper. And this is kind of one of the last things the students do is they're put together the process paper, because it basically tells what was the process of them doing their project, from the research part on to the creation of their entry. So you see the list of questions here that we want them to answer in the process paper. Now, we prefer that they write it as a cohesive process paper, not a question and answer type of thing. The process paper is limited to 500 words. And so once they're finished with everything, their paperwork consists of a title page, a process paper, and an annotated bibliography. And that's for all entries. Now, with some entries, that won't be in paper form. For example, in a website, that's all put on their website. The title is on their homepage of their website. Their process paper and bibliography are linked on their website. But the other categories, typically it's a paper copy that's brought with them to contest, although we are having them upload some of those things in the registration process. Okay. Poll question number 3. The question is, what cross-curricular involvement could be incorporated into the National History Day process? So where do you see a connection with other teachers, other departments on your campus?
All right, everybody's pretty quick now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected, that all of the above. So those students that might be doing a scientific topic, might have that science teacher involved and helping mentor some of the History Day projects. But the performances might be the drama teacher helping out, so forth. Great.
Okay, let me get that out. Okay. All right. So the way that if you are interested in going through the process of the contest, the first step would be it could be your school. There may be a local contest first, so just check with your campus and see if there is a school contest. But then it's the regional contest, and the regional contest they're usually held in February or March, early March, and there's different regions across Texas. And so just go to texashistoryday.com and look for the regions and coordinator, and that will the rule of thumb is that you go to the closest region to you. And so there's regions, there's South Plains covers like Lubbock, the Lubbock area, and then we have the Panhandle Plains in the Amarillo area, on down to and then there's Houston that has a few different regions just because of the size of the area. And then Danny is the Syntax regional coordinator, which is the Austin area. So there's definitely there's going to be a region that if it's not immediately next to you, it will be pretty close. That's what we try to do. So just check and see when those deadlines are. There's a registration deadline typically, and sometimes that is also the project deadline. So you just want to pay close attention to those. And so just go to texashistoryday.com, like I said, and go to the regions and coordinator section. You can see who to contact. If you contact them and they don't get back to you, go ahead and contact us, because we will definitely make sure that you get the information you need. The top 2 placers out of each region, out of each category and division, so that's the junior and senior, elementary poster, and then junior and senior, and each category, so all the 5 categories. And then we're talking also about there's a group division and an individual. So the top 2 placers out of all of those go on to state. And the state contest is held in Austin on April the 20th, and it's at the Bullock Museum. That's where the exhibits are. And then the rest of the other categories are held on UT campus. So last year we had about 845 students. And it was a really, really great time, because some of the students haven't been to Austin. They haven't been to the Bullock Museum, and you get to go through the museum too while you're there. So I think it's definitely a experience for the students to meet kids from all over the state, and then also to present their project and share what all they've been working on. Then the top 2 placers again move on from state and go to nationals, except for the elementary poster category, like Danny mentioned before, and they only go to state. That's 4th and 5th graders. So, but then for junior and senior, then nationals is June 9th through the 13th at the University of Maryland campus and near Washington, D.C. And this last June was the first year that we were able to go back in person to the University of Maryland and for the National History Day contest, and it was fantastic. There was so much excitement. All of the students had such a great time. They meet students from all over the country, well, all over the world really, because Guam was not there this year, but there's China, international students from China, from South Korea, Virgin Islands, American Samoa. So they meet students from all over the place. And I will say that minus the contest, the competing part, I think the most cutthroat part is the button trading that the students get involved in. So they trade buttons from all over the place, and the challenge is, of course, to get all of the buttons from all of the different affiliates that are competing there. So that's pretty exciting for the students, and sometimes the whole family gets involved in helping one student get all their buttons. So it's a really great time. And one of the things I really like about the Texas History Day program and the National History Day program is that the judges interview the students when they present their project. And so I don't think there's a lot of that interaction between where students kind of are the expert and get to present in a conversational, they don't do a set presentation, they just answer questions based on their project. So I think it's kind of a unique thing, that it's more like a traditional interview. And so I think that it provides students with a lot of practice and skills in that way too. The entries are judged in various, there's a rubric, and the rubrics are in the Google Classroom, so you can take a look at those. So even if you wanted to use this just in your classroom, there's a rubric there that you can use for grading. And whenever you're thinking about the theme, if you use a writing prompt in your classroom anyway, then the theme could be the writing prompt or the research prompt. So so the rubric, it's historical quality is 80% and clarity of presentation is 20. So if we're talking about like the exhibits, um, the historical quality, of course, will weigh more than the flash, than the sparkle, the lights, the blinking, the blinking lights and stuff. Because some students they'll walk into the contest and they'll see these really shiny, bright exhibits, and they start worrying. But then they realize that, wait a second, I did a lot more extensive research and my project looks really great. So the judges are aware of the historical quality counting for more. So it doesn't have to be really flashy or anything like that. Um, as I mentioned, during the judging process, students are interviewed by the judges, and basically they're asked things like, why did you choose this topic? Um, what was your most important primary source? What challenges did you encounter when you were doing this project? And so we encourage students to practice an interview ahead of time, and they can do that by presenting doing their project for the school or for different groups, different clubs, and that sort of thing. So and then practice being interviewed. There's a lot of different resources that are available. The National History Day website has a ton of information, and we also in the Google Classroom there's quite a few different resources too. So the theme book is in there. The theme video is in the Google Classroom as well. The theme video basically explains the theme and breaks it down for you. Also, there is a graphic organizer, and there's various resources like that on the NHD page. And then it talks about also what kind of category the student wants to select. And so what would fit best with them. And so these resources help them kind of break down the theme and break down the contest a little bit easier. In the Google Classroom, there's a teacher video library and that I put together for you. And so the teacher video library is basically a bunch of it's different video resources, and there's a description. And I also put the length of the video. So if you want to know how long it is before you show it, or if you want to fit it into a lesson, you can do that. And there's all sorts of different information on how, what is historical significance, what is, there's different concepts such as multiple perspectives. National History Day really emphasizes multiple perspectives. So there's how to do that, how to do an annotated bibliography, all sorts of different resources. So I really encourage you to take a look at the video library, and that can give you some ideas too.
Okay, Lisa, let me back up just a second. One thing I wanted to point out on this on the National History Day website, it's broken down by category, and you can see examples of each kind of project on the National History Day website. So if you want to see what a completed documentary looks like, you can go to the documentary page and play some of the samples that they have on the website there. And same thing with all the other categories as well. So if you want to see what finished products look like, you can see them on the National History Day website.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, so also the TexasHistoryDay.com, that's a website I've been referencing. This has, of course, last year's date on here from the photo. We still have last year, but it's all updated with this year's. But the regions and coordinators over here is what you'll want to look at for information on the region. The guides and checklists right here has a theme book, has the rule book. You can download those. You can download various things like that. And then if you go to the research resources, there are areas for you to, recommended areas for you to go to visit for research, such as we were talking about trusted resources where you can get trusted sources. And so we have some of those locations there listed there. And also there is a teacher guide to research and a student guide to research that you can use in your classroom. As I said, even if you're not wanting to do the contest, you can use that in your classroom because it helps break down the process for you and the student. And so those are really great resources. There's also all sorts of, there's We the People, I think is it We the People? The book, there's a different books, theme books that they have that talk about like women in history, kind of more of a politics in history. And then there's one World War I in history. And the articles that are in the books have suggested lesson plans, suggested sources, and that sort of thing. So those are all available for you to download as well. One other thing that I want to mention is we do offer special awards that are not category specific, that are not like first, second, in addition to first, second, third, and fourth. We offer category award, special awards, and those are from sponsors, and they will donate a certain amount, and then they set the sponsor sets the criteria. So it could be the best exhibit on legal history, something regarding legal history. We have some that are the best project on education in history, or the best project on African American history in Texas. So if you just take a look at those, then some students will kind of tailor their project around that, so they qualify for some of those special awards too, and they could get additional monetary prizes in addition to if they win the category. We also have a t-shirt design contest. So whenever the theme right now, it's on the website, I believe. And so, but the t-shirt design contest is students can submit their design based on the theme for the t-shirt, and then the t-shirt that we have for the year, it features their design, and that's what the students wear at nationals. And students can buy the t-shirt, and then they can get $250 and a free t-shirt, and they'll be invited to the awards ceremony. So that's another avenue that they can go and participate. So if you would like to implement NHD or Texas History Day at your school, um, there are different ways that different things that we recommend. Create a game plan. There is a worksheet in the Google Classroom that will do this, that kind of breaks that down for you, and also a sample timeline. And we have provided different resources for you to introduce the theme to the students. Between the theme book, the theme video, and different ways that, and the theme narrative. So all that information is in Google Classroom. And then for the students, they need to kind of start thinking about topics to research, so brainstorming that. Um, they need to think about researching their topics, how they were going to go about doing that, what avenues they're going to do that through. There's a really good resource in the Google Classroom from Minnesota History Day, and they have a research worksheet. It's a kind of a booklet that kind of breaks down the research process, and they did a really great job on it. And so the students can use that. And some teachers use that, and then they use that to grade each step of the research process. Then the students will create their projects and prepare for contests. The great thing about the program too is that each step of the contest, the students can improve upon their project. So they can get the feedback that they get from the judges at the regional contest, and if they move on to state, they can improve it based on that. And then again, moving on to nationals, they can improve it based on their feedback from the state contest. So that's why we say that the project you see in the beginning at regionals is not the project you'll likely see at state. It'll be kind of night and day, and it's great to see that transformation. Okay, so we'll go to the fourth poll question. Okay, so based on this, will your students participate in National History Day program this year? So, and we understand that there's a lot going on with and your lives are very busy. So we can try to help you. We will help you however we can. And if you're new to Texas History Day or National History Day, one of the great ways to see the program is to judge. And so if you want to take a look and see what region is closest to you, that's one of the ways that we recommend teachers take a look at the program if they can. And it typically is a motivator. Okay. And we definitely don't want to panic anyone and make them think that this is another program you have to do in your classroom. So, but if you need any resources or any additional help, Danny and I are here for you, and we will help you do whatever we can. We're also willing to do webinars on demand or workshops on demand, and so we can do a virtual workshop in your classroom or for your school if you would like that. If you need a certain aspect concentrated on, we can do that. So just reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to do that. As we said in October 16th is the next webinar, and it's going to do a deep dive into research. And so I'll share some, tricks and tips for that. But if you want more information or you have questions or anything like that, as I said, you can go to the regions and coordinators portion on texashistoryday.com, and you can find your region and your coordinator, or you can just email me, lisa.berg@tshaonline.org, or Danny Corbett at thd@tshaonline.org. Sometimes the THD@TSHA online is easier to remember. So feel free to email either one of us. We're more than happy to help. If you're going to be at TXCSS, the Texas Council for Social Studies conference in October in Houston, Danny will be there. So stop by the booth, and Danny will he will answer any questions you have. He will give you some good giveaway stuff, and he would be more than happy to speak with you.